Hiya guys, welcome along. Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and here we are now with part 5 of this beautiful-ish Vulcan build. I say ish because of that nose gear bay. I think they could have done a lot better with that. Anyway, mustn't grumble, eh? Not to worry. Right, so as you can see, we've got sprue glue and everything all over there. That's all gone off now. To be honest, this is only about an hour since I did part 4, so yeah, and I've just literally launched part 2 on YouTube, so we're way behind. Sorry, way ahead, should I say. This is very, very strong. This is going to be a treat for your eyes. Okay? Look at this. Well done, Airfix. This is like a Tamiya fit. Look how this fits in here. Look at that fit. I mean, if I just apply, but can you see the joint? You know, I'll pull it apart so you can see the gap, and then when I put it together, you know, there we go. Look at that. That's bloody awesome, isn't it? You run some glue in there, let it go dry, and then just rub that over with a sanding sponge. You're not going to need any filler, Mr. Surface, or anything. It's gorgeous. So yeah, lovely. Right, going on to the inside, though, is a different story. I've started using Mr. Surfacer White. It's actually Mr. Base White, it's called. And that way we won't have any dark areas, because Mr. Surfacer is a darker grey than the plastic is. I'll just show you. It's a darker grey than the plastic is. So when we go to paint inside there, we won't have any dark grey lines to be covering up with white. So what we'll do is, I might even use Mr. Surfacer to paint the inside of these, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do them yet. You can spray them. If you can get in there and spray them, it's fine. Make a nice wet mix so you don't get any dry areas, or you can actually block the ends off into a little bowl, fill them with paint, swish them all around, make sure the paint, and then let the paint run out, and then leave them to dry stood on end like that, so it all runs out. But that can be a bit, you know, it's okay for a big 30-second scale nozzle, but on some of this small, it can sort of close them up a bit because the paint remains quite thick. But anyway, we'll see when we come to it. But the fit of the top section is lovely. I think they actually personally made these upside down. They should have had that fit in the bottom and that fit in the top, because when you look at it, it's the top, it's the bottom you're looking at all the time, and it's the fit at the bottom here is nothing like as nice as the fit in the top there. So yeah, and don't forget, when I did this, plastic card in behind there to pack it out, and then you won't have a big gap to fill. And I would also suggest doing this and working on the bottom and getting that lovely and smooth before you, because it's so much easier to get in there and sand it with it like that rather than having it like that. So there you go. And then we'll have to deal with this seam here, because that is very visible. There is actually a strake that's going to go in there. There you go. There's a strake that's going to go in there, and that's also going to blend in the front of here, and we're going to have to do some filling, and we'll probably do some sanding and seam sealing on there. So like I say, it's no good having these all done and beautiful. In fact, that area, I believe, yes, that area, if we look at the colour fallout, I believe that area's, yes it is, it's camouflage. So, and it's also showing a line there, so maybe there's a seam. So that's not white, so we can actually paint these white and paint the fronts in camouflage colour and then do the work. We just have to be careful not to scratch the white. So yeah, it's going to be a real, like I said when was it part 3 when I was talking about painting these, if you've got a better idea for doing it, then please let me know. But as I said, what I'm planning to do is paint the front in the camouflage colour, and then mask them up with their templates, and then paint them white, and then when we come to paint the whole aircraft, soft edge masked. And basically what I mean soft edge is put the masking tape on backwards and bend it over, or use tissue paper or something just to stop the paint getting onto the white bits. But there we go. That's if somebody's got a better idea, then please let me know in the comments below and tell everyone else as well. So there we go. Right, so I'm just gonna have to let this dry now, and then before I can sand this down, and when we get the bottom right, then we can glue them together and start working on the seams. So I'll probably see you in about 24 hours, 36 hours, but a couple of seconds for you. Alright, so we're still working on these intakes. I'm going to have to leave these for quite a few hours before I can mess with them anymore. So what I'm going to do is start looking at some other stuff, and what I want to look at is how those upper wings are going to fit with all of this and the bomb bay and everything. So how is it going to look? quite incredible actually. If you look at this, this looks nearly finished, and I have still got, I'll show you, I'll put the box under the camera, you can see we have still got a whole bunch of parts to go on. So quite a busy model with all the separate control surfaces. Now what I'm going to do now is a little tip for the newer modelers out there. It's just something that, you know, a lot of us older modelers have learnt the hard way, and it's good to pass these sort of things on. So usually if you're removing parts from a sprue, you would hold the sprue up in the air like this, and you would come along and clip it off. Okay, but with these bigger parts you need to be very careful, because with this wing section, for example, if you clipped it here, here, here and here, it was likely to, if you're holding it like this, the wing is likely to go down and it will rip a chunk out of the leading edge. So the best way to do big stuff like this is to have it on the bench, hold your cutter, that was already broken, hold your cutter as vertical and cut away. And where you've got a thin edge like this, don't try and cut right up to the edge, cut away from it. Okay, I know these cutters are designed, these nippers are designed to go right up to the edge, but don't, just go, stay away from the edge. Okay, with stuff like this it doesn't matter, it's just a tab, it doesn't matter. But you can see here where we've got that fairing leading into the fin, I've gone away, I've stayed away from it. So we're going to cut these off now, again keeping everything flat. Stay away from the edge, stay away from the edge, stay away from the edge. And then put through there. And that way we haven't damaged any of the part at all. Okay, we haven't ripped any plastic out of anywhere. So there we go. And Jess is sat down here looking at me as if I'm talking to her. I'm just trying to fold a sprue up to get it in the bin. Right, so I'm going to give this a clean up, and then we'll just dry fit it onto the wing and see how it looks. So again, for the newer modelers out there, we've got it off the sprue, got this little bit of sprue nib left. Now we can come in fairly close and just take off the excess, like so, without damaging the actual part itself. This bit here, just cut that off, that's not, doesn't matter, and these bits here don't really matter. So try and get yourself a nice wide flat sanding stick. This is a 220 grit. It's no good trying to use something like this to get in and sand these little ones on the trailing edge, on the leading edges and stuff, because you'll just probably leave a mark. So the one, I mean, I see so many people spending all their money on kits, and a few quid spent on some lovely tools will just make the modelling so much nicer for you, and it'll give you far better results. So just trimming that off there without removing too much, and then always do it from this side. And I'm going to sand like that and just take away that through nib. And I don't want to be going like this, because what you're likely to do is that, just sand in one direction, and then you probably won't make a mark or put a radius on it. There's a bit of a sprue nib there. That's not a sprue nib, don't cut that away, that's part of the model. Okay, and then when you get to bits like this outer edge, the wing tip and the leading edge up to here is all part of the upper wing. So with the stick, roughly at 45 degrees, just lightly go around that tip and just get rid of most of that nib. Same again here. Don't go like this, just keep going, because you'll end up putting a flat on it. Just go around like that and keep going around and get the shape off. Then come in with a sponge. This is a 800 grit sponge. Nice, again, nice big sponge, something big you can hold on to, she says. And again, where that nib was there, wherever it was, just go over, and there's going to be a seam line around there as well from the mold tool, so go around there. And then these nibs here, where you've got like on a leading edge of a wing or the center line of a fuselage or something, as long as the actual mating face is clean, I wouldn't worry about sanding the outside of it, because you're going to be cleaning that up after you've glued it anyway. So you may as well just leave that there. So just going around, just having a look, and we can see that everything's all cleaned up. You've got no sprue nibs. If you rub it with your fingernail, you'll feel if there's a nib, and there is still something there, look. So I can just come with that sponge and take it away. In fact, it's a little bit too much for the sponge. Okay, what you must remember with sponges, if you're trying to sand away a lump, this is what happens. If this is the lump, you can see that the sponge is riding over that lump. So what will happen in effect, if you were sanding away this little nib here with a lump with a sponge, what you would end up with, exaggerated, would be this. Okay, because the sponge, you're pushing the sponge in and it's sanding the top of that, but it's also sanding either side of it. Whereas with a hard stick, it's only sanding the top, that actual nib. So they both have their purposes, and you need to make sure you're using the right tool for the job. Otherwise, your modelling, you'll be fine, but you want to be, you know, doing it as good as you can. So we have got some sinkage around here we talked about before. I'm not going to really worry about that. I need to look back at Phil Flory's review and see if his had it, if this is a one-off or what. Maybe some people have got it worse than others, but we've got a little bit there as well. You know, a quick sand over there with a sponge, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Plus, I know this should be gloss. I'm going to be doing it matte, so I just don't like to see model aircraft in gloss. It doesn't look right, unless they're navy. Right, so how's this going to go? So this is going to slot together like so. Okay. Alright. Actually, that is a bit of a mess, that spine, isn't it, with the sinkage? But hey ho. We can sort that with Mr. Surfacer. We're modelers. So this is going to plop on the top like this. So let's just do one at a time, shall we? Or should we tape them together? Let's tape them together. See how it looks. For the more experienced modelers out there, I'm sorry that I do often go on about basics, but you must remember there's a lot of people watch these videos who are new to the hobby, and you also get a lot of people, especially with stuff like this, the Titanic, they may have never built a model before, and they're doing it purely because of their massive interest in the subject. So if I tape that on there, and I tape that on there, wow, it's nice, isn't it? So that's what we're going to push together lovely down there. And then our nose is going to go on like that. With this clamped together. Just looking, yeah, it's very nice indeed. Very nice indeed. So if we look at the fit of the leading edge, it's awesome. Those air intakes, I don't know if I can slot one in through this way. I don't think I'll be able to, but we'll give it a go. If I can pull it apart enough. Now it's all falling apart. We'll do that when we've got the air intakes together. But yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. It really is nice. That's gone together beautifully back there. Look, we've got this little bit of filler work to do there. The Bombay is lovely. They've actually got pegs in the roof section that go into the spars of the Bombay. That's going to help hold the top section together. That's nice. We are going to need some Mr. Surfacer in there and stuff to get rid of, because we've got those, you can see down in there, in here. It looks a bit toy-like, so I have to get rid of that. But no, it's and it looks like those, yeah, those undercarriage bays are touching the upper wing. Now in here, my plan is to get some sprue in here and glue it to this. There's a bulkhead down inside there. Okay, so my plan is to glue some sprue to the bulkhead back there, have it coming across the nose gear bay and have it finishing here, so that when I close it up I can pack out the sprue, so I can have the sprue coming out here. If I get a cotton bud, have the sprue coming out like that, and then I'll pack some shim under it, and that will lock that then upwards so that if it ever does come loose it won't break away, because you never know. But I am very impressed. And then of course the fin's going to go on here and cover all that gap up, so we've only got this little bit here to worry about. We've got a little bit of sinkage here, we've got a little bit of sinkage there, and we've got this area here is a bit of a mess, to be honest, but it's not going to be difficult. There's no rivets or even panel lines or anything to deal with, so we'll just brush some Mr. Surfacer over there, sand it smooth, and you'll never notice there. But all the wings and that, if you look at them, they're lovely. Actually no, there is a big sink mark there and there. I didn't notice that when I did the review. If you can catch it in the light, there is a very big sink mark there. That's going to stick out like a sore thumb. In fact, if I hold a straight edge over, that's probably the best way to show you. Come here, rule. I don't know if you can see it, but no. But it's definitely there. You can feel it. You can see it there in the light, right way along there. So that's a shame, but it's not insurmountable. I was talking about Tamiya quality, I meant the finish of the plastic, not the sink marks and stuff. So anyway, very impressive. For Airfix it really is very, very good. Let's just look how that nose fits again. Lovely. Really, really nice. We're going to need to pack out one side of that by the look of it, unless I've got it misaligned and it'll come forward a bit. But yeah, I'll have to put a bit of plastic card in there, pack that out. That's nothing at all. As I say, we're modelers, we're not assemblers. So, very nice. Havre Vulcan. Yes. Right, here we are now, morning after the Euro 2020 final. So I've bitten my nails. That's enough about that. Right, so gone in now and I've done all this. I've cleaned all this up. These are another Flory product. A lot of the sticks I show you, I think he's actually changed them now, but they're basically the same. And this is coarse on one side and very fine on the other, and it's brilliant for things like this because it's a very soft, very pliable sponge, and you can just get in there and sand away like that. If you don't push too hard, the coarse won't leave great big gouges or anything, and then you can just go in afterwards with the smooth side and polish. Okay, so, and you can see we can even get like a bit of a shine going on the plastic there. You can see it's a bit shiny, or can you? I don't know. Anyway, so there we go. So now we're ready to glue it together because we've dealt with all that down there now. So we need to be gluing this together. So there's a couple of ways of going about this. You could put glue along these seams and then push it together, okay, and have it all oozing out. But I find the trouble is with that, if you have glue oozing out, when you come to fill it, the little lumps of glue that have oozed out will be harder than the Mr. Surfacer that you're putting down there. And when you're sanding it with soft sponges and stuff like this, you want to be always working with something smooth. Otherwise you'll end up, as I said earlier, because this is going to comply, it won't get rid of any raised areas. You need something hard to get rid of raised areas. So what I'm going to do is actually clamp it together and then glue it. Now the trouble is we can't get glue down the middle here, so we're going to have to put some glue down the middle. So I'm going to use for that, I'm going to use this one. This is the Mr. Cement Deluxe, and it's very similar to the little Tamiya one here, although it's slightly thinner. This is the Tamiya really gloopy one. I think this is sort of similar to the Tamiya white bottle. So make sure you've got the right one because this dries quite fast. So I'm just going to brush some along there. Okay, just so we've got some glue on there. And I'm going to let it sort of start to tack off. You can see it's starting to dry on the edges, and then we'll just push this together like so. And you can see there we've got glue oozing out, so I'm going to get a cotton bud and just wipe down those seams so we don't have that dried lumpy bumpy finish. And then grab a clothes peg, stick it down the middle, and that will hold that for us fine. Now for the sides, what I'll do, while the glue's out, I'll do the other one. So we'll come in here, put some glue on there. And if you don't have this, you could use tube glue or the Revell contactor in the little, the little bottle that sits like with the angle. Use that, but the trouble is that you're gonna struggle to get brushing glue down in there. So again, I'm going to come with the cotton bud and just remove the glue that's oozing out. Okay, and then we'll get a clothes peg on the back of there to hold that one together. So there we go, that's the centre seams done. Just check no more is oozed out because we don't want to be dealing with that. Right, so that's that done. And now we can come along with our, again, I'm going to use Mr. Cement S just purely because it's got a bigger brush. And just brush that along that seam. Plenty in there. We want a nice strong joint here. We don't want any flexing or anything. Okay, and then we can get another couple of pegs on there. Like so. In fact, I should be able to take that one off and this will actually hold it together. Okay, and then we'll do the same down the other side. Put the glue in. Just like that. There, and then there we go. And then what we'll do is just again get the cotton bud and remove any oozing, remove any of those raised lumps. And the same on the other one. As I say, get plenty in there. You want a really nice strong welded joint. You don't want any splitting or cracking. Get a clothes peg on there, clothes peg on there. There we go. The same on this side. There we are, job done. So again, go with the cotton bud, get rid of any oozing. And there we are. And if you really want to make sure they're a strong joint, you can check the clearance in the wings and glue some plastic hard strips down the outside just to make sure, because when you're in there sanding and stuff and getting it warm, they can split open. So it's you need to be mindful of that. Trying to find another clothes peg. There's one. Just get that on there just to hold that. There we go. Job done. Okay, so going back to these wing sections, we'll put these intakes out the way just to let them dry off. We'll leave them for a couple of hours, and then I think I'll put some plastic strips down the outside of them. So look at these wings. I was talking about sink marks, and this one on this side is a bit weird. I've put some pen on there and then sanded it so I can show you, but what's happening, if I try and bring you in, oops, this panel line that runs along here, it's like the plastic's raised around that panel line. So instead of it just being a divot in one side, it kind of comes along and then it goes up and then down and then up again. So it's very strange. So what I've done is I've used this trusty old Tamiya scriber. I'm just gently deepen this line, okay, and then using a 400 grit sanding stick, just sanding over it, and you can see that there's an area to the left and to the right of that scribe line that isn't sanded. See, it's shiny. So we need to get that flat so it looks good, especially if you're going to give your model a gloss finish, as it really should have, but I'm not going to because I don't like the look of it. So there you go, we can see we can sand all that now nice and flat, get it all levelled out, and then where the pen remains is where we're going to have to put some Mr. Surfacer. So there we are, and I can feel there's quite a divot there. It's the deepest area is there. Your model may not have it, your model may have worse. It's all really down to poor quality control and just really rushing them out. This is caused because it comes out of the mould too quickly and it shrinks because it cools too quickly. And it's also to do with the plastic they use. They could use a more stable material. There's a lot of things they could do to improve, but unfortunately they never do. I think I've told you on a number of occasions, if you're new to my channel you won't have heard, I've got all of the Airfix Lancasters, the 1/72 scale ones, and every single one of them has these lines, spider webbing I call it, in the canopies. And it's where the mould feeds through and the plastic has like a cold front, and the plastic flows in from here, meets in the middle, and it doesn't meld, and it just leaves a line. So I spoke to Airfix about it, and they said, yes, part of the process. Okay. So I replied, well, you're telling me that you're knowingly making models with faults in them then, because other manufacturers don't have this issue. And they didn't reply. So that's how much Airfix care about the customers. But anyway, so there we go. So we can do the same on there, put some pencil on. I'm using pencil because it won't come through. As you know, I've said this many times, when you use ink, it will come through. I'll have to remove that with some alcohol before we paint over it. But if I was to spray some primer on that, it would come through. Paint the paint on it, it would come through. And we can see there that where that pencil line is, we've got another sink line along there. We've got some more sinkage in here, which I'm not going to use a pencil on. We've got some there. And then all the way along here, we've got some there, which is all because of these ribs in here. So if they just left it a bit longer to cool, and all this sinkage here underneath these flaps, we've got sinkage there, sinkage there, sinkage there, and the other side is worse. So again, I can show you that with pencil. If we go over that with some pencil, and then I gently go over that with a sanding stick, you'll see what I mean, where the sinkage is. There you go, you can see that it's all around here, it's all sunken in. So yeah, unfortunate, but as I say, I must look at Phil Flory's review again, because I don't think he had that issue. And again, we can see it over here. So we get the pencil. You can see again, it's high around the line. So just going to deepen that line slightly. That's another little tip of mine that I always do. If you are looking at areas where you're going to be rescribing, rather than rescribe, prescribe. So deepen the scribe line that's already there, and then when you sand away, like if you're sanding away trailing edges to thin them out, when you sand away, you're not having to rescribe it, the line is already there. So you can see this side isn't anything like as bad on the wingtip, but we can see we've got a raised area there around that scribe line. It's really strange. So there we go. So that side looks like it should be okay. I mean, we're going to have to put some Mr. Surfacer in here because we've got a definite sink there, unless it's supposed to be there. Could the people in the comments please tell me, is that supposed to be sort of come down and then straight? Like that? Or is it supposed to be, one line coming back to the back? Please let me know in the comments. So there we go. So we've got more sinkage up here. We can see, I get the pencil in there. There we go, got a lot of sinkage around there, got some around here. I'm tempted to kind of deal with this before we put it all together, because it's easier to do it with handling this part rather than handling the whole thing. We've got some there. I mean, some of this won't show up. That definitely will. That's like a ploughed field there. It's awful. So yeah, and all down here as well. Oh dear, that's really bad. So what we do is use the pencil to highlight it, and then it allows us, when we go in the Mr. Surfacer, it shows us where we need to be putting the Mr. Surfacer. Thank God we haven't got raised rivets on this, eh? You can see there, I can catch it in the light, you can see how bad that area there is. That is really bad, it's very deep there. So yeah, I gave it sort of 10 out of 10 in my review sort of thing. It's gone down to 8. Not over the moon with this at all. So I'll get on and get some Mr. Surfacer in it. I'll come back and you can see then just how bad it is. And there we go, I've got Mr. Surfacer now in all the areas where we've got sinkage, so you can see it's quite a lot. It's quite deep around here, very deep on this wingtip over here, and quite deep on those trailing edges. So we'll leave that to go off, and then we can sand all that flat. We'll come with like a 400 grit and just keep it nice and flat, and we can get all that to go down and get it all kind of even. And then obviously there'll be more to be put in on around this area when the fuselage goes together. But yeah, shame that. It's a real shame. Anyway, it's not unsurmountable. It's a model. We are modelers. This is what it's all about. So I don't think there's anything on the bottom as such. There's no real sinkage in the bottom. There's a bit there actually. I will deal with that because it is, even though it is underneath, but it does look quite bad. But everywhere else it looks absolutely fine. Yeah, so we'll deal with that there. It's the same here as it is there, but other than that it's fine. So I've got to deal with these joints here. So again, I'm going to come in with a 220 grit, okay, which is quite coarse, but it's worn out. It's more like a 400, and just very gently, again, it's a hard wide stick. This is what you want to use in areas like this, and just very gently rub away this sprue goo. Don't want to go ploughing in there and start gouging things out and ruin surface details and stuff, because if we can, we want to try and avoid having to do anything with those circles. So just sand that away. It's a curved area. It's more curved here than it is there. It's kind of tapering back. So I'm just going to keep sanding till we can see the grey plastic on both sides. We don't want to be losing those circles. And by the way, if any of you guys out there have got a Airfix Handley Page Victor you want to sell me, let me know, because I would like to buy one. This has kind of got me wanting one. I've got the old Matchbox one, and I've got the Rival one, which is the Matchbox reboxing. But they're all raised panelings and everything, and I believe the Airfix is better. Or maybe it isn't, maybe it's less accurate or something, I don't know. But if anybody's got one they want to sell me, please let me know. So I'm just going here now with a sharp point and just going in and making sure that we've still got full scribing on those circles. And this is what I was saying just now about pre-scribing rather than doing it afterwards. So I'll come in now with the 400. Just gently sanding away to get a seamless joint. And then we can come along with a brush and just brush the dust out of those circles. And as you can see, they're all still there, all looking good and dandy. And that little one back there we go. And that I think will do us. And then I can come in then with an 800 grit, or it's a 800 grit sponge, just to take out any flat spots we might have put on there. And you can see shiny bits on there, which means we haven't gone in, so it's going to need a tiny drop of Mr. Surfacer on there, and we'll sand that out and that joint will disappear. So that's that one done. And then this one here, we do kind of the same, but we're going to be struggling because we can't get in there because these engines are in the way, and we can't go like that because this is in the way. We could come in from the back like this and just gently sand away. We don't need to be as careful in this area because we don't have all that scribing right next to the joint to worry about. Okay, just go crossways on here. And there we go. Do the same on that one as we did on the front, and we're good to go. So I'll get this done and then I'll come back and I've got some Mr. Surfacer in there. Okay, so I'm sorry guys, we are darting about a bit with this one because it's sort of do a bit, let it dry, do a bit, let it dry, and I'm sort of trying to keep going, so working on different parts. I've gone in now and got some Mr. Surfacer on this seam here, and I've also gone in with Mr. Surfacer in all the joints where all those cross members go across, and or spars should I say. And down here we're going to have to do some sanding and scraping to level everything up, and around here as well, and we'll get all that done. I've put Mr. Surfacer all along here where it was all sunk, so it's probably going to need another coat, but we'll let all that dry and then we can sand that out. So, and as I said, I think I showed you already, the upper wing surfaces are all done, they're ready to be sanded. These engines, the intakes are glued together. I've put some 10 thou plastic card now around the outside. I fitted them into the lower wing and had a look to see where it might foul, and basically you can see that there's an area here and here where it would probably foul, so there's no plastic card in that area there. Because obviously I don't want it to foul, so, and that's why I've used thin plastic card as well. So yeah, be careful if you are doing what I'm doing here. Just stay away from the end of there. I think it's about 10 millimeters, 8 millimeters. So 8 millimeters from the end. If you put nothing there, then, and the only reason I've done this is just from personal experience. I've found in the past, you're working away, you got your seam absolutely perfect, you're just doing the finishing touches, it cracks, and you're like, you glue it, the glue oozes out, you start again. So just do that, just backs it up and it stops it cracking. So that's those done. I've also started work on the nose. I've done some Mr. Surfacer work around there. I've sanded all this out, that's all lovely. Doing some work on the top now. Make sure you cover up your area, the seats and everything, in case you sanded stick touches or something. And don't forget as well, this edge, this back edge, people normally forget these edges, as I said before, I think in my last video. Get in there with something fairly smooth and hard, not soft, and just do that back edge, just square that up so it's like a one-piece combing rather than two pieces glued together. So there we are. So we'll do that when we come to it. So looking through the instructions, we can't really do it at the moment. We're sort of stuck, we can't really do anything. So looking through the instructions at other sub-assemblies, so here we've got the tail, so we can go on and glue the tail together. Now in the early kit, the early Vulcan kit that I showed you the other day in the comparisons video, I think there's some issues with that because that resin set I got, the flap set, came with a new tail. So I don't know if there's an issue with the shape or if it was the wrong shape tail for the mark or whatever, I don't know. But we'll remove this from the sprues, just like so. And this is what I'm doing, is just putting together sub-assemblies that are going to need seam work, and then we can, you know, glue this together, wait for it to dry, and go from there. And as I say, when I'm doing seams and stuff, I don't worry about cleaning up the sprue nibs because there's a tiny little bump on there. We'll have to be really careful. They've moulded that little bump on there. If you can see it, if the camera focuses, there's a little bump on there that's actually part of the kit. So we'll have to be very careful when it comes to sanding that we don't just sand that off. So we're just going to glue these together. I've got a bit of a big sprue nib left on there. So I'm going to glue these together, see how they fit. And yes, they fit beautifully. All the panel lines line up. So yeah, that's all nice. Great, so that's going to go together beautifully. So I'll get that glued together. Use the Mr. Cement S again, so we can just drop some in there and let it capillary in. I'm just going to pull this just apart, just to make a bit of a gap for the glue to get into, and then it can capillary through. Just like that. Same there. And there we go. Look for the glue oozing. If you don't see glue oozing, there might not be any glue in there, so put some more in. These big seams, you don't want them to start splitting open and stuff when you start sanding. And if you really want to make sure, you could get in there with the brush and get some glue around the inside just to make it nice and strong. And if you really want to, there's nothing to stop you coming along with your ordinary paintbrush, just like this, and going down inside, just like that. Now I can assure you this is not going to crack, split or anything, because it's got about a gallon of glue in there. But there we are. So that's that done. I've got some bits of tape here I can use just to tape it together. Just like that. Another one there, and then the same over there. There we go. So that's our tail done. Wonder how that fits in here. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's not bad. You can see we've got a scribe line going across a panel there, so this is probably going to be filled. So there we are. Don't know it's going to fit in the top. Starting to look like a Vulcan now, isn't it? Anyway, there we go. So that's the tail done. Right, what next? Right, so for the newer modelers amongst you, you're going to love this. Experienced modelers are just going to fast forward because they know all about it. As you know, I've been using this product here, Mr. Surfacer 1000, and it can be used in many, many different ways. It can be thinned down and used as a primer. It can be brushed on, as we've done here. As I said earlier, you could leave it on the side of the jar, let it go thicker, and then brush it on. And then when it comes to sanding, if you've got a seam like this or something, then obviously you would sand it with some fine sanding sticks or whatever and get it nice and smooth. But in areas like this, obviously getting in there and sanding would be very difficult. And the only reason I've put it in there is just to fill up any cracks or gaps or anything where there's a join. So what we could do, where there's a seam like down in here, we could get in there with a sanding stick and sand where we've got a seam in there in the side wall. Okay, I'm not going to start sanding at the moment because it's going to be too soft. But in areas like this, it's going to be very difficult. So what you do is you take some Mr. Colour Leveling thinners or any of your hot lacquer thinners. I have seen some people do this with cellulose thinners, and I don't recommend that because the cellulose will attack the plastic and it may cause it to crack further down the line. So basically I've got Mr. Colour Leveling thinners on there, and I'm just going to come along and I'm going to wet all these areas, and then you can just rub your cotton bud over the areas where you've got the Mr. Surfacer. Okay, and what it does, it removes the excess from the surface, but it leaves Mr. Surfacer in the joints, which is what you want, so that when you come along and paint and wash your Bombay, you don't end up with gaps and holes that look unsightly. It looks like one solid piece, which in real life is what it would be. Okay, go down there where there's some down there. And a lot of people who follow me regularly, you'll know that, you know, I mean, James Mower, for instance, commented, and I just happy he talked about Mr. Surfacer. Everybody knows that Mr. Surfacer is like my favourite modelling product. And it's got so many uses. I actually had an email from someone yesterday thanking me for introducing them to this very method. It just makes life so much easier. Okay, so this is what you would use like on a, if you're doing a tank turret and you've got all the armour going on and you want to get rid of all the little gaps and that, you'd use it for that, you know, where you can't sand. Obviously you wouldn't use it on that because the whole idea is to get rid of the seam. This isn't to get rid of the seam, this is to hide the gaps. Like all around these parts there were gaps. So you can see here, now what we've got is Mr. Surfacer remaining in all the corners, and that will dry and pull down in, and it will hardly be noticeable when it's painted. And then when we put a wash in there, the wash will build up into the corner rather than just get wicked into a gap and make the gap even more obvious. So there we go. And if you want to clean up, you can go in again with the other end. You know, and if you want to, you can get these special little cotton buds with points and stuff. You can get them from Tamiya. You used to be able to get them from Anish, A-N-Y-Z, but I don't think he ships to the UK anymore. So if you're in the UK, you have to make do with the Tamiya ones. But for stuff like this, I just use the ordinary ones because I don't really want to get tightly into the corners or anything, because we want it to look a bit dirty and a bit groggy, and then when we give it a wash, it will sort of make it look really good. So you can see there now the effect we've got. Okay. Don't worry about these, you can see grey smeared around on here. Don't worry about it, it's so thin it will not show. If you want to get rid of it, clean cotton bud, Mr. Colour Leveling Thinners, go in and just rub it over and it'll be gone. But as I say, some people use cellulose thinners. I never have. I don't want to try it because if it doesn't melt the plastic straight away, I've seen stuff like solvents like that attack plastic over time and crack them. One other thing, guys, in one of my first, I think it was the first video, I talked about putting plasticine in the nose, and somebody has commented they did that on a model, and after a few years the oils in the plasticine started to affect the plastic, so perhaps not do that. There we go. So I'll get the other side done, and then we'll start looking at sanding these joints and get rid of all these sink marks. And there we are, look, all done. You can see you've got that little gap filling properties in there, and if you want to go in again and, you know, with a bit more, because you can see like there's a bulge of Mr. Surfacer there, you can just go in and rub it away. And you know, you can put more on. You can, if you want to sand it back, you can sand down the sides if you're looking for, you know, absolute perfection. But all I'm looking for is just not having gaps, and if I'd left some gaps I could have showed you what I meant. But if you paint something white, it's got a gap in it, and then you put a wash in it, the wash will go into the gap and it will enhance the gap. If you have a join like you've got here, the wash will go into the join and enhance the join, and that will just look more authentic because it looks like there's dirt collected up in the corner. So that's what you're looking for. You don't want gaps, especially when it's painted white. Now, for instance, this area here, I'll point out with the knife, you can see here, where are we? That area there, you can see it's a little bit of a big gap. So you might decide to put some more Mr. Surfacer in there, let it dry, and then go back over the cotton bud. But you know, or you might just decide to leave it because you're not really that worried about it. And if you're really not sort of worried about weathering and accuracy and everything, then just leave it as it was. But there were some gaps there, that's the trouble. So I want it to look like a nice solid white Bombay that's been dirtied up. Now this Mr. Surfacer here is too thick to rub. Because I've put it on thickly, it's taking longer to dry, obviously. The way to check it is just get your fingernail and just push your finger down. If it leaves a mark in it, it's too soft to sand. It'll clog up all your sanding sticks and it'll just all tear off and you're back to square one. But this area here on the fuselage is dry enough, so we can do a bit of work on this. So this is just a 400 grit stick. In fact, I'm going to go for a 220 initially. And I'm not pushing down, I'm just letting the stick do the work. And I'm going over and I'm doing this, so I'm not putting a flat spot onto the nose. And we're just going to sand away until most of the Mr. Surfacer is gone. And you can see that sprue nib there has left a white mark around it, so that may well show up under some primer. We will have to prime this model because it's going to be literally plastered in seams and Mr. Surfacer. And if you go straight in with your paints, you won't see the seams and stuff. So that is too wide to do in there because I'm worried that I might touch the top of the seats. So I'm going to use something a bit narrower, which is this sponge here. Just putting no pressure on it at all. Just letting the abrasives do all the work. Just get that nicely leveled out. Quite a step in it there. This is what you'll often find, you know, you get this bit here right, and then what you'll find is further up the road you'll get a bit of a step. So we want to make sure that little land where the front of the canopy is going to go is nice and flat. That's cool. The beauty of the Vulcan, of course, as I think I've said before, is the framing around the canopy on the real aircraft is quite rough, shall we say, so we don't have to have it all lovely and smooth like it is on an airliner. Yeah, that's quite a step in it there. We're going to need more Mr. Surfacer rather than just keep sanding it. So here we go. You can see there's, if I can show you close up, there's quite a step, so that might be something to be aware of when you build yours. Just bend that side up a bit if it's slightly deformed, make it a better fit. But obviously I was only concentrating on this area here. So now we can come in with a sponge. This is a 1500 grit. Just go over that area that we've just done, and then go around, and then that'll take out any flat spots that we want to put on there. And that is your front section complete. All done. But as I say, we'll put some primer on there before we do anything. This area back here, with that little nubbin on the side, so I have to be a little bit careful of that. And I'm not going to worry about sanding it out too much, because obviously when we fit this onto the the wing, then we're going to be doing more filler work around here, so we can blend that in at the same time. There we go. What we could do there, down next to that lump, is use the cotton bud. Just remove the Mr. Surfacer like that. And that's the other time you use the cotton bud system is if, say, you're doing a side of a rail car or something, and there's a seam and you've got raised rivets, or say a helicopter, you put Mr. Surfacer in and you use this system with the thinner and your cotton bud, and then you can remove the Mr. Surfacer and not lose any of your raised divot detail, whereas when you sand it you lose your detail, don't you? So that area on the bottom there's a flat here on the bottom of the fuselage, so we're just going to sand the Mr. Surfacer away on that flat. There we go. Looks like that's going to need a drop more as well. And I don't know if you can see it, but I can see where I'm sanding, and I'm trying to keep that flat even, you know, sort of symmetrical around the centre line of the fuselage. There we go, and then we can go over that with a sponge, and that will just break the edges. And there we go, that's that done. I don't know if you can see that. There's a flat in front of the glazing. Okay, so don't go sanding that round. And then all this area here, again with the 220, I'm just going to lightly go over it. In fact, it's a little bit soft still, I can feel it. I'm not going to do any more because it's going to tear. So there we go. And always keep blowing your cockpit out, don't let any dust build up in there. We've got some dust in the back of that glazing, which is going to prove a nightmare. Hopefully we can blow it out with an airbrush. In fact, let me try that now. See if we can get it with an airbrush. Make sure there's no thinners or anything in your airbrush. And just blow in there. Yeah, we've got rid of it. That's lucky. So there we are. So, and don't forget to do that before you put it all back together. Build the whole model up as well. So this is going to be one of the issues, because we've got this open area here. When we're sanding and everything, a lot of dust is going to get in the cockpit. So it's good to put the canopy on after you've done all your sanding, because you can guarantee you get dust in there inside your canopy and then you can't get it out. So that's just the law of sod. So we'll get some more Mr. Servicer on there. We'll get some on this back edge as well, so our shroud looks nice over the instrument panel. And then that'll be the nose section pretty much done once we've blended that out. So, right, when dealing with sink marks, you can either go over there, spray it over gently with some different colour paint, like a brown or a black or something, just different colour to the Mr. Servicer, or you can just go over and make some pencil lines on it, whatever. It's best really to use some black paint, but I'll be doing that probably after I've built it all up. But just to get the start filling them up, what we're going to do is just sand away. This is a little bit too soft to be sanding, but I want to make a video, so just sand away until you start to see the plastic appear on the edge, and then stop sanding. What we don't want to do is go sanding away plastic from underneath. And bear in mind, we're going to have to work on this seam. We're going to work around here where it all goes together. As you can see, that's going to fit in there like that. So we've got a seam there to deal with. Something else I've noticed is I think we're going to have to remove some material from the top of here and the bottom of here, because when it goes in, it kind of sits exaggerated. It sits like this. It needs to be twisted round so that the centre line lines up. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now I think I've actually sanded enough there. You can see we've still got a lot of sinkage underneath the Mr. Servicer. Again here we've got Mr. Servicer, shrinkage under the Mr. Servicer, so we need to put more Mr. Servicer on. And then here we could just go over again. I'm using a 220 grit and not applying any pressure. You don't want to be going in with a fine sanding stick because it'll just clog up with the Mr. Servicer. Yeah, you can see it started to tear. So when it starts to tear, just stop. Don't keep going, it's pointless. And on this trailing edge here, again you can see we're rubbing here, we're rubbing here. We still need more Mr. Servicer in there, so there's no point in sanding it anymore. We may as well put some more in there. But at least when we do sand it, it will show us where it needs to be. And this is, like I say, if you sprayed it just black, just some black or dark paint over it, when you sand that black paint off, it will show you the black areas that are left behind, and that's where you need to put more. In here, we're going to have to come in with something skinny. So I've got the skinny stick here, just to go in there, just to remove that. So we don't want to be finishing with this, so we will stop before we're actually down level, because this is too coarse. There we go, that's one place where we're not going to need more Mr. Servicer, so that's good. And then to finish off, I'm going to come in with the 400 grit on the Infini PE sander. Sand that. And yeah, this Mr. Servicer is not really dry enough to be sanding, so I'm going to stop there. So I think what we'll do, I'll be able to sand that. I think what we'll do is we'll call it a day for this video. And then I can put this down, because I'm finding myself trying to push ahead before I should be. Again, when you're using sponges, don't go pushing, because you'll end up just pulling all the Mr. Surfacer out and you'll end up with sink marks again. But you can see that that's the sort of thing we're looking for. You can see that it's all feathered in, all the Mr. Surfacer is sanded, and it's smooth, so all you've done is filled it in. If you painted over that now, it would look worse than it did before. So there we go, and the same here. You can see we've got shiny areas in there, and it's starting to feather out, but obviously you want it all matte, all sanded and all feathered out. So I'll get on and put some more Mr. Surfacer on. We'll call that a day for this one, and I'll see you, what's this, part 5? I'll see you back for part 6, where I think we're going to be putting all this wing stuff together, so it's going to look really nice. See you then. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and if you don't like it, hit the unlike twice. Bye for now.